one of my most favorite quotes is by Harriet Tubman, and that quote talks about the fact that every great dream begins with a dreamer. So the reason I love that quote so much is because anyone can dream, anyone can dream. And dreaming is just the beginning of the entire process. One of the things that I think we lose sight of is the fact that our personal brand highly impacts our ability to achieve our dreams and our goals. A lot of times when we think of our personal brand, we think of the way that we look, we think of the clothes that we wear, and that's only a small component of our personal brand. Our personal brand is actually everything about us. It's the way that we look, it's the way that we speak, it's the way that we interact with other people, it's our core values, it's the vision that we live out for our lives. I mean, our personal brand is us. We're a walking brand. And so when we talk about how to improve our personal brand, it's improving every aspect of who we are and not just what we wear on the outside. What we wear on the outside could perhaps manage our image for a particular period of time, but our personal brand supersedes whatever image we put out there from a dress perspective. And so the first thing about improving our personal brand is, of course, enhancing our appearance, paying particular attention to the clothes that we wear, making sure that the items that we select are items that suit our body type, making sure that it's colors that naturally accentuate our beautiful color. Like red is one of my power colors because it just makes my skin pop. And so knowing what to wear is important, knowing what to wear and when to wear it. Our personal brand requires that we know what the occasion calls for. So we're not going to work in church clothes and we're not going to church in club clothes. So we're making sure that we're enhancing our appearance by choosing the right type of clothing that suit our body makeup, but also the colors that make us pop, and making sure that we are dressed appropriately for whatever occasion it is that we are showing up for. The second part of improving our personal brand has to do with the way that we communicate. The best leaders are those who are gifted in being able to orate. These are leaders who naturally are able to communicate and connect with other people. And our personal brand requires that we connect with other people. It's how we make an impact. I mean, it is said that people sum us up within the first 30 seconds of meeting us, which is really a short period of time. And while that is the case, they're summing us up based on our appearance, which is why that's the first thing I touch, to make sure that when we show up, we look right, making sure that we look the part. But secondly, when we open our mouths, the way that we communicate. And so our image may be elevated, but our image is also communicated once we open our mouths. So when we speak, we have to be very careful of the words that we use, be very careful of the tone that we use, be very careful that the language suits the environment. As a Bahamian, we can kick into Bahamian dialect, and that's really okay if it suits the occasion. So we have to be very careful. Now, the thing about communication is it's 55% body language. So people are looking at what we say versus listening to what they hear come out of our mouths. And when we can take away that powerful lesson and know that our body speaks more than what our words are saying and what our voice tone is saying, and we're able to manage and control our body language, we're beginning to master communication. The other part of communication that has a high percentage is our voice tone and modulation. When I was a little girl, I always knew when I needed to put on a second pants because I was going to get a cut here. It's in the voice tone. And the voice tone is 38% of the way that we communicate. Now, I want you to take a second and add 55 and 38. When you add 55 and 38, you get 93%. 93% of the way that we communicate has nothing to do with the words that we use and has everything to do with what our body projects, and also has to do with our voice tone. This is why, as it relates to improving our personal brand, we have to really master the art of controlling our body language and learning how to have neutral expressions on our face, because we are so full of expressions, particularly women. And this is great in relationships as well, because our men, the people that we're in love relationships with, they're looking at what we're saying. They're looking at our body language and our tone, and that's superseding. We could be saying the the nicest things, but if our body language is not on point, they're not paying attention. So to improve our personal brand, first we have to enhance our appearance. Secondly, we have to make sure that we communicate well. Thirdly, we have to continue to invest in self-development. Now, and I like to use this analogy quite a lot because the fact is, stagnant water. When you think about stagnant water, what hatches in stagnant water? In stagnant water, we have insects hatching. You have mosquitoes, you have tadpoles. In stagnant water, you have odor. It's really stink. And so anything that stands still for any extended period of time, it gets stink. So in order to improve our personal brand, it's super important that we continue on our self-development journey. Now, here are some of my recommendations for how to continue to grow and develop as an individual. The first thing I'm going to encourage you to do is to do an honest assessment of yourself. We look at ourselves through jaded eyes, no lies. We look at ourselves and we're really passive and calm about what we do and how we act. But when it comes to judging other people, we're pretty harsh. We need to turn that on us. And we need to really have an honest assessment of how we show up. When we show up, what do people see? What are the core values that they see represented? When they interact with us, are they seeing that we're honest? Are they seeing that we have integrity? Are they seeing that we're personable? Are they seeing that we're passionate? And so doing that self-assessment is a super part because it's in knowing where we are that we know where we need to go. The second thing I'm going to ask you to do is to talk to people that you trust and give them the freedom to tell you how you're showing up, because they're going to tell you. They can see you outside of you. And so I want you to find 3 to 5 trusted people that you can have a conversation with and ask them, how are you showing up? This could be your family members, your best friend. This could be a mentor or a coach. But you really need to have some outside view of what happens when you show up. The third thing is, I'm going to ask you, if you're able to, do a 360 survey. Some of them are online. They're free, and send it out to people so that they can anonymously send the information back to you about your attributes, about your standards, about how consistent you are. Once you get all of that information, the sum of everything will tell you what your personal brand is. And it's at that point that you're able to say, okay, this is where I am, and then establish where you want to go. A very powerful lesson my mentor had me do when we first started working together was to write down who I was. And to be honest with you, I didn't know who I was. I was so lost. I mean, I just come off the bathroom floor. And so I was really lost about who I was. And so he asked me, he said, Donnie, can you just write down who you want to be 10 years from now? Who do you want to be? And so I wrote down that I want to be passionate. I wrote down that I want to be consistent. I wrote down that I wanted to show up and live large. I wrote down that I wanted to be honest. I wanted to have integrity. I wanted to have a character that was beyond question. I wrote down that I wanted to be personable. I wrote down that I wanted to be able to connect well with other people. And so he said to me, he said, well, in order for you to be all of these things, you have to live this out every single day. And so that's what I'm going to encourage you to do. Write down who you want to be. When you show up, what do you want people to see in you? And when I'm in my training classes, I like to ask participants who have never interacted with before, who are meeting for the very first time, to tell me a little bit about me. And they'll tell me things like, I'm passionate, that I'm knowledgeable, that I love what I do, that I connect well with other people. And so the reality is, we shouldn't have to say to other people who our core or what our core values are. We should be able to demonstrate that, and people should see our core values in every interaction that they have with us. And our core values should align with our personal brand. And in order to know what your personal brand should be, I'm going to also encourage you to really identify what your personal vision statement is for your life. We look at organizations and companies, they have vision statements. Organizations will have a vision statement that will tell you what their goal is as an organization. Well, the brand of you are an organization. What is your life's purpose? What do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Because that's the first step in figuring out the type of brand that you need to build so that that brand attaches to the vision that you have for your life.